Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network, presented by Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by Sean Smith. Sean, how the heck are you, bud?
I am fantastic, Jack Pilgrim. How are you on the 24th day of June?
I'm good. I am back. I got in from my flight of hell coming back from Colorado Springs at 4:15 in the morning. So it's been a lot. You and your nerves with flights, I think this probably would have gotten to the best of you because I was so flying back from USA training camp. First flight was perfect. Going from Colorado Springs to Dallas, flying through the air, just hanging out, having a good time, no stress in the world. As we're landing in Dallas, I get like 5 straight notifications on my phone that's like 15-minute delay, 15-minute delay, 30-minute delay, 30-minute, hour delay. And I'm like, whoa. My flight that was supposed to take off at like 10 p.m. then was going to take off at like 1 a.m. and then it got me home at like 4:15. It was just the worst, absolute worst. So needless to say, it's been a little bit to try to like recover and get my groove back after coming back from Team USA training camp. But really just such an unbelievably cool experience, to be there for Mark Pope's first, USA basketball opportunity and watching him in his element and getting his hands on kids, coaching, training, recruiting, all of those things. It was just really cool to kind of see all that unfold for the very first time. I thought Malachi and Jasper's, I'm sure you saw, played really, really well. Jasper ends up making the 12-member team. Malachi would have made it if he didn't get banged and bruised up a little bit over there. But a really good showing for both of the incoming Kentucky Wildcats, and an even better showing, in my opinion, from Mark Pope. What did you take just kind of from that experience watching from afar, Mark Pope getting that opportunity to be with 9 2026 kids that currently hold Kentucky offers?
Yeah, I think it's huge for the Kentucky brand, right? And getting him in that element of coaching and just getting his voice out there. It's different when you're recruiting kids, but when you actually get to be on the sideline using that voice in a coaching way with guys that are future college basketball players. And I just think it's a big deal. To everything from the last 12 to 14 months, Jack, has just been a progression of how he establishes his Kentucky brand as a head coach. And I feel like this was another step to do that, to showcase the way he talks, his intelligence and knowledge of the game, and then just his ability to build relationships, not only with his current players, but also other guys that are ingrained in the game as well. I think it was a really cool thing. Unfortunate for Malachi, obviously hearing that he played well and looking good, but really cool to see Jasper get that opportunity, moving forward as well. And somebody asked me the other day if I have any concerns about him doing that and missing out on some of the things that are happening right now. I don't, because he's playing at such a high level of basketball that it's such a really good thing for his game. While he may be missing some things, he's still doing things that's going to progress his game as well, and it'll be an easy thing when he is here full time.
And I think people need to understand that the 72 hours more maybe that Pope got with Jasper, that it was a restrictionless time frame where Pope was able to sit down and have face-to-face meetings and workouts and drills and live game action that you only get 4 hours of instruction, hands-on instruction a week back in Lexington. So I just think we have to just remember that, yes, while the summer workouts are fun, and we're going to talk about some of the intel and things that we've learned about what's actually going on back at the Joe Kraft Center, you only get 8 weeks to work with, and you only get 4 weeks of, 8 total hours per week, but 4 of those hours are just conditioning, weightlifting, things like that. You only get 4 of hands-on instruction. So he actually got more hands-on time with Malachi and Jasper in Colorado Springs than he was able to even get in the first week total with the rest of the guys back in Lexington. So we just got to, readjust what it meant to have that much time out there. And like, there's nothing that replaces live game action against high-level competition alongside other elite talent. I mean, we're talking the best U19 players in the world that Jasper was playing in Switzerland. He just arrived in Switzerland today. you know, playing alongside them on the USA side and then also playing against them. We talk about all this international competition, the guys that Kentucky's bringing in, all the other college basketball standouts. Playing against those guys overseas in this, FIBA event it's such a it's invaluable. Like, it is such a priceless opportunity for Jasper, and that's why he kind of changed his mind. Like, the plan initially was for both of the Kentucky boys to go out there, kind of put on a show, prove they belong, and then get both of them together, come back to Lexington. And I think it just kind of hit, probably both, but especially Jasper. Like, I have a chance to, win a gold medal, maybe for the last time in my life, play alongside other elite talent, play against other elite talent. You had Mark Pope and the rest of the UK staff pushing and saying, go do it. You're wearing USA across your chest. Make us proud. Go win gold. And I think all those things can combined and considered, I think it's going to be just a massive opportunity for Jasper.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like I was saying about Mark Pope's brand and establishing that Kentucky brand. Well, if you're Jasper, you're trying to establish your own individual brand even more by getting this opportunity to do that. And I mean, this isn't something that just anyone gets to show up and do. Like, this is a great opportunity that he's been provided and he earned. And I think it's going to be fun to follow to see, how he does. And not just, a Kentucky guy, but like an actual Kentucky kid, a guy that grew up right in the heart of the state. So I think it's really cool to follow what he's doing. And before he gets here, it's an opportunity for Kentucky fans to support him now.
Your opinion, Sean, second most representatives in the entire event behind California, the state of Kentucky. Like, obviously Jasper, Malachi are one thing, but then you have Tyron Stokes, who's the number one player in the country out of Louisville, and then Tay Kenny, consensus top 20 player in the country, trending as maybe the number one point guard in the class, out of Newport. 4 of the 32 players invited from Kentucky, second most. What does that mean, knowing, you're in the weeds with, Kentucky high school basketball, the talent coming from the state? What does it mean to have, that much representation and, just kind of the growing talent that is coming and developing with it within the Commonwealth?
Yeah, and even though all those guys don't represent a Kentucky school at the moment, and went elsewhere outside of, Malachi, but I just think it's a really cool thing for the state because those are still Kentucky kids. And it shows that the talent, from the state, this is a really good pool and collection of it. And it's not always been that way, right? Like, when you look at the McDonald's All-American game over the years, there's not been a whole lot of kids from Kentucky get that opportunity. So getting that opportunity, in its sense, representing Team USA at a training camp, I think it's a big deal for those 4. It's a big deal for the state, but it also shows that, I mean, we just had college coaches come through the state over the weekend for a live period to watch a lot of local kids put on their game. And it was cool to see the baseline full of schools. And Kentucky's got a really good brand of basketball, maybe not to the level of some others, but it's growing. And I feel like that, the media is helping with that, with highlight videos, constantly putting these guys out there. There's great talent in the state. And I think those 4 getting that opportunity just showcases that even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Tyron Stokes is Tyron Stokes, the number one player in the country. Recruiting him is going to be, you're going to have to play the heavyweight battle and, win that one with money, with, resources, with, brand and platform and all the things that come with recruiting the number one player in the country. So that's, something to keep an eye on. I do think Kentucky is in a sneaky good spot there. I know, the Louisville, Kentucky conversation is definitely in full force with Kansas and, the BYU talk. There's Arkansas talk. He's the best of the best and, biggest coaches, the biggest budgets, all of those things are going to come into play when you have a guy like Terrence Stokes. But I do think that Kentucky's in a sneaky good spot there. But Tay Kenny arriving today, yesterday arrived, but official visit starting right now in Lexington, again, trending for the number one point guard spot in the country and, top 20 recruit nationally. Just what is the draw there, Sean, if you're Mark Pope, to continue the Kentucky pipeline, keeping a kid from Newport home while also juggling like, hey, do we just stack the roster with Kentucky boys because they're Kentucky boys, or do we, take the best talent available and knowing that Tay probably fits both of those? He kind of checks the Kentucky box, but he's also a pretty damn good basketball player.
Yeah, that's not one that I would question whether you're just taking just because he's a Kentucky kid and a possible pipeline for the state. No, that's a guy that I'm actually glad is not here, that I don't have to deal with at any
No
point.
kidding.
Like, that seriously, like I'm very thrilled for him that he has had opportunities outside of just the state of Kentucky, and I don't have to game plan for him if we were to see Newport, because that's a great program. It was a good program with him. It's been a good program without him, but he's one, Jack, that, like I said, I'm not worried about. It matches on both sides. Kentucky kid, and his talent is it's off the charts, man. And he's one of the better players in that class, one of the better players in the country. And if he ends up at Kentucky, I think it would be a great thing for both. But we'll see. And obviously, you've got Jasper and these guys that are kind of, you know, laying the path for what this looks like early on with Mark Pope as kids from the state. And I think that he's taken notice of that as well.
I think Tay Kenny, if you were just to ask hey, what's your opinion on Tay Kenny's recruitment? I think Louisville will be desperate to, with the Adidas connection, will be desperate both financially and just, in terms of need and want to keep him home and how use that Adidas connection to their advantage. And I do think Louisville's a legitimate player, but I think the kid personally likes Kentucky and wants to be at Kentucky. I think Kentucky has the cool factor that Tay, is a growing social media sensation. I mean, he just blinked and he now has 400,000 followers on Instagram and is becoming just this viral TikTok sensation. So like, you kind of have to factor that in as well, and how the Kentucky brand and platform will help him in an unbelievable way. The way Jasper, I mean, Jasper is, the KY Till I Die stuff, the organic. And again, as we talked about the last couple shows with, the house settlement and the importance of NIL, the organic NIL, the real NIL dollars that, you use the national brands and the platform, that is going to be such a game changer for Kentucky. And I think Tay is going to be one of those kids where if we can overcome the Adidas connection pushing him to Louisville, they are going to be invested to, keeping him home at Louisville. I do think that Kentucky is just in a tremendous spot. And obviously we'll see how this visit goes. And if the pitches are aligned and, money is going to have to be there and those sorts of things. But I do think that Kentucky is in a really, really good spot there to, keep a local kid home. Yes, people around the program just, hey, who are the guys that we're probably furthest along with and have the best shot with, and Tay typically comes up among one of the early names of that group. So I definitely keep an eye on that visit and how things are going. But very cool to see a local kid make his way to Lexington for his official visit, and hopefully things go well. And we'll kind of recap that next week, probably see how that went. He's there for Sean, very important time in what we talked about with the summer workouts. And, this is kind of when Kentucky fans really just dig in and just obsess over every little nugget and whisper and every just crumb that they can get their hands on with who's standing out or who's looking the part, who's better than expected. Was there anybody going into this, Sean, that you were expecting to hear more of, and a name that maybe further along than people expected, or whatever the case was? Who is somebody that you had your eye on in this 8-week stretch for the program?
With everybody being so new, I think it was more just the returning guys, maybe, like what, obviously Ortega, we know that decision went down, to the wire before it was official. What was BG, and what has his focus been in the off season since the season ended, and how his game has developed and going to this point, because you've got talent coming in at that spot when it's healthy, that's going to, push you to be your best. So I think that was probably who I looked at. But out of the new guys, it's that time of year, right, where we hang on to every single highlight clip that we get. Like it'll be a 10-second frame of somebody firing a baseline drift to somebody sliding corner for a three, and you just try to break it down from
frame by frame, like put your super glasses on, and like I think yeah.
Jalen Lowe probably be the guy, just because I feel like that at the center of all this is going to be point guard play. And when you talk about what Kentucky has as a roster, it has great depth across it, but I feel like that is just such a priority position for what Mark Pope wants. And if he's able to get the job done at an elite level, then I think that this team's going to operate at an elite level. Now, obviously, beyond him, you would have to get a little bit creative with what you want to do behind him at that spot. So I think that his transition from where he was to where he is now is probably the thing that's appealing to me the most about this roster, because I think it's going to be the position that ultimately decides where Kentucky goes with this thing.
Yeah. In terms of the public intel, what we know based on the public interviews and just the conversations we had while I was out in Colorado Springs, I asked both Malachi and Jasper their early impressions after move-in, who stood out to them and how things are going. Malachi said that it was Mo Diabate's just grown man strength, how he just was not expecting him to be, as strong and just chiseled and, throwing his weight around the way that he did. That kind of caught Malachi off guard. That was kind of fun to talk to him about. And Jasper said, as you said, Jalen Lowe said that he was really kind of finding himself and is using his voice and, really growing in that way. And that Jalen was, a true point guard that looked the part for sure. Just this week, I asked Mohamed Diabate that same question, who's standing out. He said that Jasper actually was the guy that stood out most to him in some of those early workouts, early practices before Jasper, went out to Colorado Springs for USA basketball and now out to Switzerland, that Jasper was definitely looking the part. So those were the public takeaways, but I've heard in my own conversation. So just generally speaking, the staff is very, very impressed with, kind of their vision coming together and the guys that they recruited to put in certain spots and be, kind of fill certain roles, that they are doing that in stride and they have come along exactly the way they expect. And one person thought that they were, better than they kind of thought at this stage. And again, super early, we're in the second week of workouts, so we're still just kind of getting out of the conditioning phase of this and just kind of like, hey, we got the conditioning test, we have, here's just kind of the standard of what we're going to need, in terms of endurance and stamina, and how, that's going to be priority number one if we're going to run a 14-man rotation, 13-man rotation, whatever that's going to look like. So just kind of take a lot of that stuff with a grain of salt. But the team, generally speaking, better than they expected and probably further along than they expected at this stage in late June. In terms of individual standouts, I think it's important for, this to be the first thing that we talk about, where the three guys that maybe are three of the most important players on the team besides, Otega and the returning talent that we have right now, that Mo Diabate, Jalen Lowe, and Denzel Aberdeen all look exactly worth the price of admission, kind of as advertised, everything they kind of hoped and dreamed that those three together would be. And I think that's really huge. I really do think it's important, especially like you said, for Jalen Lowe, knowing the importance of that role and filling such a massive void left behind by Lamont Butler. Like, Kentucky had to get that spot right. They had to get that signing right. So it does feel pretty good to hear that, after, learning to find his voice and some of those things, that Jalen has really kind of found himself on the floor as an early standout. So those three separating themselves as kind of being as advertised and worth the price of admission. I think that's pretty huge. Fourth name that has come up, Sean, Braden Hawthorne. That's one that I expected. The other three, didn't necessarily expect the fourth, because what you heard about Braden, you knew he was skilled, knew that needed to put some meat on his bones, and knew that he was just going to be kind of a work in progress kind of signing. So for him to kind of separate early as like, well, maybe we have something here that was maybe better than we thought. He's making shots, kind of showing off that positional versatility and just the raw skill, while also acknowledging like, hey, we got to hit the strength and conditioning program hard. Those four, the names that have popped up. What are your takeaways on that, Sean?
I mean, obviously starting with, Jalen Lowe, like I said a minute ago, I think it's great to hear that transition's been smooth to this point. And, with Diabate and Aberdeen, no surprise, right? Like, I was having a conversation yesterday morning with someone, and we were talking about the impact of getting those guys and what it means for your team. And they're guys, Jack, that I believe from day one, regardless of what the role is, if they both start, if one comes off the bench or something, I think they're going to be so ingrained in what their role is. They're not disruptive ads where they're veterans that have played roles in other programs that have been very successful. Obviously, no more successful than winning a national championship, Final Fours, deep NCAA tournament runs, SEC championships, defending, rebounding, making high energy plays. Those are the guys that are glued to what ends up being national championship caliber teams in college basketball, whether they start or they're sixth or seventh off the bench. So that to me is encouraging to see that at this level that you're hearing great things from those guys. As far as Braden Hawthorne, a guy that we talked about a month or so ago when he announced his commitment, that it was kind of this is a great investment individually. It's a great investment for the program. If it pays out, it's worth a shot. And he's got the frame. When you look at him, he's bigger, maybe longer than what you actually thought, even though you knew he was long to begin with. He's got that frame that you can kind of see having success in the league as it grows. I think it's a great thing that you're hearing his name popping up early too, and it's probably a good confidence boost for him that he's getting this, type of bump early. And then the other guys, I just think the core and the nucleus to how this goes.
Mm-hmm. Another just kind of fifth note of the group who's not playing right now, but is running apparently. Jaden Quaintance, I've heard, is just looking the part in terms of the rehab we know who he is as a basketball player. Now it's just about getting him on the floor. And I've heard really good things just about the recovery process and how, UK has done a really good job of kind of, putting their heads together and coming up with a rehab plan for him that's going to put him in position to play. A lot of hunger on his side to play this season, and, exceeding expectations, I think, in terms of, being 3 months removed from surgery to repair a torn ACL, running and, getting that mobility back, kind of like even getting to the point where it's like, whoa, Nelly, like let's not get too ambitious here. Let's kind of go with the flow and stick with the plan and the process, because it is going so well that it's almost like, a snowball rolling down the hill where you're like, okay, we love to see the snowball getting bigger and bigger, but let's make sure it's not going too fast. So great news there for Jaden Quaintance, and making sure his recovery is as planned. Apparently a hell of a chess player too, because I thought it was really funny that Mark Pope at the in the North Laurel County satellite camps while he was down there, one of the reporters asked, hey, where do things stand with Jaden Quaintance? How's he doing? What's the expectation for him to play? He was like, I'm not talking about Jaden Quaintance. He's dead to me. He beat me at chess, and I don't want to say his name. So next question. I was good. It's a good way to handle a non-answer where you don't want to address it, because I do think that there's something to be said about not setting unrealistic expectations for him in terms of like, hey, he's going to be ready for the start of the regular season. He's going to be playing game 1 of the regular season, because what happens if he gets close to there and he's just not quite ready yet, but he'll be ready a week after or 2 weeks after, whatever that is. Then you have 1 or 2 weeks of panic because you set a goal and an expectation publicly that you missed. So it doesn't really do anybody any good to say he's going to be back on the floor for the regular season tip-off. He's going to play against Purdue in the exhibition game, whatever the case is. I think they're trying to back away from some of those hard deadlines while acknowledging like, hey, this thing is going really, really well. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, and let's just let things play out the way they need to, because I think the end results are going to be very much worth the wait.
That's a veteran out for a question, if I've ever heard one, with like, I'm not going to put any added pressure on this kid. And I thought it was a well played thing for sure. But he looks good when you see him, right? Like when you see pictures, you see videos, he looks really good. And it's a guy, Jack, that adds so much value to what this team can be with that ceiling that we talk about and how high that ceiling is for this team. It goes to another. You add another layer to the house, like of how good you can be when it comes to what this team can possibly be when it gets into that midseason form, late season NCAA tournament run type thing. That's a guy with high-end NBA potential, paired with a guy coming back that also had his moments last year that's expecting to take a jump for himself in BG. So when you get those two things together, I think you've got a heck of a punch in the post to do some versatile things there, defensively, offensively, high energy around the floor, shot blocking, rim protection, to go with these guards that we're already talking about that's going to make Kentucky a better defensive team. You've got Mo Diabate and his physicality that I think there were two games that Mark Pope remembers from last year. And I think that I'm telling you, he put those things in blood. Ole Miss and Alabama in the SEC tournament.
Literally blood, because
Literal blood.
There's still blood in Oxford right now at the locker room based on the gash in his hand after the fact.
And I feel that he looked at those games last year and he said,
what was the second one you said?
Alabama, the SEC tournament.
Yeah.
And I get it. The regular season matchup at Alabama, the second half wasn't great, but that SEC tournament was just Kentucky doesn't get beaten like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what we want. And I feel like he looked at this thing, Jack, and just said, I've got to make sure that this roster, that it never has a chance to do that again. It was great. You got guys that played beyond expectations. You got them to come together and have a Sweet 16 appearance. But obviously the injuries played into a part of it. But when you go out and you have depth like you do in the front court with Quaintance when he's healthy and BG, and you get these versatile pieces like Diabate that can defend, you get Denzel Aberdeen, you go Cam Williams, who we know has really good elite potential as well, to go with the young pieces that you've got as well, and Otega Owe. Like, this is a team on paper that when you look at it, I think that Mark Pope addressed to make sure none of that stuff happens again. And it's great depth across the roster. Like, when you think about college basketball and the teams, not just in the SEC, but across the country, Kentucky's got to be in that handful of teams that you look at to think, even though you're maybe on the fence about what some guys can possibly be because you're so caught up in what they were at other stops, like Jalen Lowe, like, is his game going to be able to go to another level? I'm sure there's people that's like, hey, he turned it over a ton. He didn't take the best shots. Well, at Kentucky, I think he's going to be required to do some other things with not having as much pressure on him to do those things. How many teams, Jack, have the depth at full strength that this team's going to be able to throw at you?
Yeah, it's a great point. On that note, we talked to Mo Diabate yesterday, and he talked about that kind of Alabama dynamic that you brought up, where he said that team and just kind of seeing the holes that Kentucky had with physicality and the athleticism and things like that, that he personally saw blood in the water as a shark, and kind of said that, and that was kind of one of the main recruiting points during the portal process with Pope, how Pope reached out and said, hey, we were the blood in the water, we were the victim, you were the shark, we need the shark on our side. Like, that worked in Kentucky's favor to get him. And Mo said that with the pieces, himself included, that Kentucky has all the pieces to be one of the best defensive teams that have come through Lexington in a really long time, factoring in Quaintance, factoring in Otega, factoring in some of the, the other guys that are on the roster, plus, him kind of as a physical anchors, Malachi said, as him having the grown man strength. I think that there is so much defensive upside, and there really is a lot leaning on Mo Diabate as kind of the glue with, as that kind of point forward role. So a lot to be excited about in that regard. And I'd like that Mo Diabate kind of talked about that in a very transparent way, where it's like, yes, me as a competitor in the SEC, I watched the flaws and we saw the blood in the water as a shark. Now it's my turn to make sure other sharks in the SEC don't see that now that I'm on the good side.
And that's the thing with those two ads, is you're adding SEC experience. You're adding guys that have gone through it in this league at the best version of this league we've ever seen. And we're on two elite teams in this league. that went on deep runs and won a national championship. Like they have seen what it takes day in and day out to survive, not just thrive. There's going to be nights where in this league, regardless of how talented you are, there's going to be nights that you thrive, and there's going to be nights that you survive. And that's to me what it is. Like it's not going to be the level that it was, I think, one through the final teams, but the top of this thing is still really good, and I think the middle of it's going to be really good and challenging as well. That when you're talking about the Floridas and the Alabamas, the Auburns, whoever it is, you know that you're going to get some punches from those teams. That having two guys, Jack, that have been incredibly beneficial to other programs and their success, I think that kind of gives you like a kind of a blueprint or like a cheat code for your current team, that you're adding two guys that understand what it takes to survive in this league, night in and night out, and lead some of these other guys. And then you got Otega that's done it too. Like the SEC experience cannot be overlooked. That Kentucky may not be returning 7, 8, 9 guys, but it's returning a lot of SEC experience, and I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about the SEC schedule in just a minute. That came out after our conversation last week, coming home from Colorado Springs. But a couple other quick notes about the summer workouts and things. We got the video from UK Athletics with the Joe Kraft Center redesign. The banners got taken down. The old, kind of actually looking like championship banners. Now they got replaced. And there's an additional banner that got hung up there as kind of just something to always keep an eye on while they're, practicing and training ahead of the 2025-2026 season. That is a number 9 banner that has the assignment written underneath it. Your take on that and just kind of the desire, last off season, we saw them take out the NBA banners and some of the pros that came through the program, now kind of pushing all of their chips in, not only on the past and what Kentucky has done in the history of the winningest tradition in college basketball, while also acknowledging the future of, hey, we got to make sure that we keep the main thing, and understand that number 9 is the assignment.
I think there's two things that matter when it comes to having a program like Kentucky, Jack, and it's the past, and I think it's the future. The present will take care of itself as long as you're aware of your past and aware of what the future is supposed to be. And when you look at it, I never really had an issue with all the individual banners that surround it, because I think that was just a way, that was an era of Kentucky basketball at the time, that was praising the guys, and it was a huge recruiting tool. I understood that, but I feel like that you're in a better spot when you're just prioritizing the history of this program. There's plenty of room to be praised individually, and we know that these guys get it. But Jack, the thing from a coaching perspective, so many of your guys are such visual guys when it comes to what the goal is. And when you can look up every single day, and that practice is hard as hell, and you're fighting every possession, you want to quit and you want to look, you can just look up in the corner and there's the assignment. Number 9. That's why you're here. That's the whole thing that we're doing here. You're trying to win number 9 for this program. And I think that's a nice touch that's been added. It's not a corny thing to me. I think it's one of those things that when you look at on that wall and you see the past that's been laid before you, Mark Pope has been a part of it, and you want to be remembered on that wall as well, right there it is. And when number 9 gets hung, I think it should be the assignment's number 10. And it just continues to get added to the wall. So I think that's a really cool thing that they have done, is to be able to look up and see every single day that they walk in that gym. If you're getting shots up at midnight, or if you're in there going through a 2-hour practice before you play LSU or before you play whoever this season, you can look up and you understand every single day why you're doing what you do.
I think I want to ask about the kind of the shade of blue that was in that gym in that redesign. But while we're talking about the understanding the assignment and what it means and those things, I thought that was put on display down in London, down in at North Laurel at that satellite camp, when Kentucky pulled together 40 grand of their own money. The players putting together their own money for tornado relief. And Sean, I know that's an area that is near and dear to your heart, and that's still something that is, we talked about when it happened in real time, that they're going to be seeing the aftermath of that for years to come. But for the players to, this wasn't some rich donor just kind of throwing cash out there and saying, "Hey, players, go down there for a photo shoot, photo op." This was them going down there. It was a free satellite camp. It was a first come first serve satellite camp. But then to surprise those campers with 40 grand of their own money coming from their own pockets, I thought that really aligned with it. The championship assignment, but also just the assignment of understanding what it means and where you come from as a Kentucky Wildcat. I thought that was a really, really cool gesture.
Yeah, and that's where the present part of this thing comes into play, right? While you are in that jersey, what do you do, and how do you make the most of it to not just better the program on the floor, but to be impactful in the lives of people that support you daily. And that's a part of the state that's been hit hard over the last 6 weeks or so, and still recovering from that. Just unimaginable loss when you drive through there and see the homes that are just gone, and then literally just a highway of destruction as you drive by 75. But to see those guys come together and to do it together as a team, it's one of those things that I know Mark Pope and his staff and this program is very proud of it. And it also says a lot about those guys, because early on they're already establishing that real connection of what it means to be a part of Kentucky, what it means to wear Kentucky across your chest. And while, like you said, the assignment on the floor is to win number 9, these guys have a greater assignment too than just that, and it's to represent what this state is and what this program has been about for over 100 years. And it's that togetherness that makes Kentucky so special.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like 14 scholarship players divided, 40 grand divided by 14, that's $3,000 that each of them with their NIL and, part of it, think of a guy like Ortega and some of the high, it's not something that they had to do, but they certainly had the means to do it. And, that's the difference between, hey, I could use this money, $3,000 is not it may be a drop in the bucket in terms of the total sum, but like they have their own families to take care of. They have their own situations. And, when you get in that type of situation, that can go toward a new car, that can go toward, a month's rent at, the nicest place you can get in Lexington. Those types of things, they can use their money the way they want to, and they have a lot of it being at Kentucky. To see them use that for good, coming together, pooling it together, I just really do think that's a special thing, and it's a very selfless thing, and it's it just shows their character, and it just shows that it's coming from up top. The right messaging is coming through. So I really do just appreciate that gesture. I thought that was a very cool thing. Also a very cool thing that it appears that there is a lot of denim right now in the Joe Kraft Center with the new redesign. That was interesting. I don't know how it was intentional, but in terms of like, oh, this means that we're definitely getting a denim jersey. There is one just when we're going to debut it. It makes a lot of sense for that St. John's game and the CBS Sports Classic. That definitely adds up for the 30th anniversary game against Rick Pitino. But anything, something, nothing. What's your vibe with the denim kind of redesign with the Joe Kraft Center?
I mean, I think it's something. I don't think that anytime you throw denim in there in Kentucky basketball that it's just random, right? Like it's part of the past, right? It's a part of an historic time in this program, and I think you're embracing the past. You're pulling the 90s to now. That is hard to believe 30 years later. Like, which tells me I'm getting old, because I do remember that 96 team. I know you probably don't. But I think it's a really cool thing that denim is becoming part of it. And at some point we will see those guys rocking denim again on the court. Like that would be great.
Yeah. And we saw the pullovers this past year for the first time. Well, I guess it was noticed for the first time. I think they've had those pullovers for a minute now, but it was the first time that seeing Mark Pope wear them on the sideline for a game, I think it kind of caught the attention of fans. Like, whoa, that is definitely a denim polo, and Mark Pope is wearing that while he's coaching this game. So I know that polo, it was not a denim polo, like or a the pullover. It wasn't a denim pullover meant to mean something. It was just kind of a new shade of blue. But I think it does kind of the two things overlap. They kind of go hand in hand, where it's not necessarily like, hey, here's the denim back. We're not, but it does kind of just, it signals, like you said, part of the past, part of the tradition, part of the, the rebrand of Kentucky basketball, while also pushing forward toward the future and something different and something fresh and something new. So cool. Very, very cool little touch that I hope that we get to see those sooner than. Do you want those jerseys to be just a one-off thing for the St. John's game, or do you want them to be a, regular staple of the home games, or,
I want it to be something that can be used more than once, just because it's such an historic thing for the program. Like, there are millions and thousands and millions of fans that have great memories about that era of Kentucky basketball. And that era was so special that, yes, you got a banner hanging, you've got video, you've got pictures, you've got stories, but how do you bring that era to present day? And how do you kind of look back on it and kind of honor that time in Kentucky basketball? Well, you do it with jerseys like that. And I think that that's a great thing to do. And, I like the last few years. I know we spent the one era that I hope we never go back to is any checkerboard. Let's not even throw that back at all. Even 30 years from now, we're not going to be recording, and as old as I'll be, talking about, Kentucky's going to wear checkerboard jerseys this weekend to throw back to the 2017 and 20.
Billy is going to be sitting in my chair talking about the old retro checkerboard jerseys.
So when I look at it like that, I'm like, that was such an historic time in this program's history that I think that it should be something that they do. Not, you don't want to run in the ground and wear it all the time, but maybe some of those big games, some of the big games that at home or on the road, that you rock those jerseys. And I think it'll be a great thing to do. And I think it just kind of adds to what this program is, and kind of adds some history to it on the court. So it's a way to blend the present with the past, while also understanding that group won a national championship wearing blue jeans, basically, and jean shorts. Just pretty dang cool when you think about it.
It is. It is. I guess there's an argument. Do you want them to have all of the eyes on it and wear it for the Champions Classic? Have it be like, hey, if you're gonna take a risk wearing these denim uniforms, you might as well display them with the college basketball's biggest stage. Or do you do it multiple times in the lower end, the BBN Invitational, all the smaller events where there's not as many eyes, and it's more of a nostalgic thing for Kentucky fans specifically to live in the history and the moment? That's the kind of the back and forth. Do you want more eyes on it, where it's going to be, create more controversy, both good, people loving it, and on the other side, just like it was back in the 90s, people absolutely hating every second of it?
Did they hate that more? Or did they hate the checkerboard more? What do you think? What do you think was hated more? Obviously, we can't speak on the denim because we don't.
I don't
KSR
know.
didn't exist then. If KSR
didn't exist as a human being then.
It's so if KSR existed during the denim, what would have been the storylines then? Because we'd have been talking about it, I'm sure. But I just feel like if you're going to do it, anything with Rick Pitino would make sense a ton with it.
You got to win. You cannot do it. What you can't risk is wearing the controversial, polarizing uniforms and then stinking up the joint. Like, you can't have that to where it's like, oh, we sucked and we looked bad doing it. Like, oh, and we have ugly uniforms while we crap the bed. Like, you can't have those two things. If you're going to wear a controversial uniform, beat the hell out of a team. Like, go out there and steamroll them, and they go, Maybe it's the denim. It must be the denim. You know, like the same vibe that '96 team. Like if you're gonna be controversial, you gotta have the on court product to back it up.
I agree. You can't wear it and lose. If you wear it and lose, it makes you reluctant to wear it again. And I think that if you're going to pull that out, you better make sure it works. So maybe one of the lower end games is probably the start, but it does feel like there would be just some level of wow to it if it were to be rolled out against Rick Pitino.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet. Also, a safe bet is our friends with Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money and 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You pick which sport you want to support when you sign up. Choose your sport and support with Club Blue. Couldn't do this without them here on the Sources Say podcast. So appreciate our friends at Club Blue. Also appreciate our friends at Optimal Living Services. They partner with clients to increase their awareness of issues and empowers them to develop the skills to manage these challenges. We believe that every individual has obstacles they will need to face, and that the services our team provides will give hope to all of our clients. Every individual has the ability to grow from their problems, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, work, finance, or emotional struggles. We help clients learn their potential and join them in their journey. You can head to optimallivingservices.com to learn more about their services and meet their staff. You can also give them a call at 859-785-1030. Sean, big news last week was the official unveiling of the conference schedule. We already know the non-conference is an absolute doozy, featuring, I mean, just go down the list: Purdue, Georgetown for the exhibitions, and we have Louisville, Michigan State, North Carolina. That was also a new one that popped up with the SEC ACC Challenge. Gonzaga, Indiana, St. John's, Bellarmine to wrap up your non-conference. And now we officially get the announcement with the SEC slate, where the home and homes officially announced as Florida, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. Sean, we're going on the road to play only, so no return trips, with Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, LSU, South Carolina, and Texas A&M. And then the home only matchups will be Georgia, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. Your immediate reaction to the SEC schedule?
Yeah, keep that up there if you can, Stephen. I really like the home schedule. I think the home schedule is favorable, honestly, for having a lot of success if you can protect home court. And we know how difficult that was this past year to win, majority or all of your games at home. But when you look at this, that Florida game at Rupp Arena, I expect to be just insane. Regardless of when the date is, where it's placed, I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere. It's going to be prime time, and college basketball is going to benefit greatly from it. I do like that you get Florida twice. I like playing the defending national champion. It felt weird this past year, Jack, not getting that trip to Gainesville that Kentucky is played basically my entire life. So seeing that back up there and getting the home and away, the home and home, there's a really cool thing to add back. Only the one date with Arkansas on the road. I would expect that maybe to shift a year from now and maybe be more of home and home with those two programs. But it makes sense if you're just going to have Cal come to Rupp for the one this past year. You probably send Kentucky there and then maybe look at doing it moving forward. But the road schedule's tough, and we knew it would be on the road at Bama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, like those. And anytime you go to Tennessee, but the home schedule to me, Jack, I feel like is kind of favorable. And I look at that, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because I know that there's going to be good teams. But when I look at those games, I think they're going to be games that Kentucky's going to have a chance to win every single one of them. And if you can do that, or maybe just lose one, you find some success on the road, and you're probably sitting where you want to be in the SEC standings.
Yeah, I think that home schedule is as comfortable as you could possibly ask for. The SEC, as we talked about earlier, is going to be very good, but not historically great the way it was last year. So you're catching a lot of these teams maybe in down years, or you're catching them at home. Some of those kind of toss up 50-50 ones that you gotta, the ones that if you want to have a truly elite season, you got to stack wins against those teams, and you get a lot of those teams at home. So you do feel really good about, Vandy, Georgia, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas. There is a path, as you said, to winning all of those. Then, the Florida and Tennessee at home, those are going to be kind of the toss-ups. I think there's a path, probably a better chance of beating Tennessee at home than Florida. Florida is going to be, very, very good at once again. But there's a path to winning all of those games at home. And then when you factor in, and also don't forget about Travis Perry's homecoming, his return to Lexington, that's going to be an emotional kind of, emotionally charged game for a lot of reasons. I don't know what the reaction is going to be with that one, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting that we do know that for certain. And then that away schedule, an absolute doozy to Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, those three are going to be, juggernauts. LSU, well, that's a pretty favorable one. South Carolina should be favorable as well. And then Texas A&M, strong roster, but new regime and, coaching style. And, so that one's going to be an interesting one in College Station. But the three main ones we all have our eyes on: Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn. Of that group, Sean, what's the biggest challenge? What's going to be the one that it's going to be toughest leaving and returning home to Lexington with a win?
I think at Arkansas, just given the crowd, because we know it's going to be that group coming to Lexington this past year. Like, we know that was set up because of what it was, right? Cal's return to Lexington, but Kentucky going there, you're going to get a juiced up building for that one. And with the team that Arkansas is going to have talent, we know that. So I think Kentucky is going to have, I don't want to call it revenge factor when it comes to some teams, but, Mark Pope and like Otega Owe and BG and some of these guys that have been here, when you're talking, you lost as many times as you did to Alabama last year, and then you lost the way that you did to Auburn. Like, there's probably some revenge there, even the Arkansas game too. But I just feel like that first one in Lexington and then that first one in Fayetteville is just such a massive moment for the crowd that one's just going to be some extra to the atmosphere. But one thing that we can't factor in yet, Jack, is the layout of what this thing looks like. What are the consecutive games in league play that Kentucky's going to draw? What's that tough road game on Tuesday, road game on Saturday week? Like, is it Florida and Alabama in the same week? Is it something like that? Is there a little bit of relief in the schedule where you see a stretch where you can win 4 in a row before you go on a tough road swing? So those things we will see as we progress through and get the full schedule with dates. But regardless of what it lays out and looks like, going to be plenty of opportunities to see this team against quality competition and put themselves in position to have a great resume.
And don't you dare forget about Valpo and Eastern Illinois getting their butts back into Rupp Arena, because we have a BBN Invitational title to there's a target on our back. We won it last year, so we just need to understand that they're going to come in hungry with it. There's a lot on the line there at Rupp Arena with that kind of wrapping up the non-conference schedule from the games we already knew. Valpo and Eastern Illinois, they are coming in wanting the smoke, so we have to be prepared with those two matchups especially, and we're defend that championship crown, because it's easier said than done when other teams are as hungry as Valpo and Eastern Illinois are. So we have another BBN Invitational championship to win as well, Sean.
Yep, we do. We'll see how Kentucky defends that, right? I don't see this team losing by 25-30 at any point, or just beat down games. I just don't see this team doing that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Kind of moving through our topics. I like today's show how we're just kind of, we have so much to talk about, not maybe just one individual thing, but just a bunch of individual cool things.
Not used to that in late June, right? Like, it's usually we're sitting here. Last year we were doing film breakdowns at this point of the summer. So
that's true.
It's good to have all this before the NBA draft even happens.
So speaking of that, that's where we're going to transition into and out of for this week's edition of the Sources Say podcast. Shay, and Cason Wallace, NBA champions. How cool is it, Sean, to see two Kentucky guards, two very, very high character Kentucky guards winning a world championship with the Oklahoma City Thunder for the first time in franchise history. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander putting together one of the best individual seasons in the history of the sport. Scoring champion, NBA champion, Finals MVP, just a an MVP of the league. Just such a cool thing for him individually, and what a recruiting tool. What an honor it is to have that next to the first time in 25 years somebody hits the ultimate trifecta with the Finals MVP, and World Championship. Those things together, just such a cool thing for this Kentucky program, but especially Shai, because he deserves it because he's an awesome dude.
Yeah, it's really cool to see Shai be this type of player and to be this good, because I remember that. So that was my first year covering Kentucky basketball on the beat, was Shai's freshman season, and coming in, a kid that was playing high school basketball in Chattanooga at the time, so not too far from where I was at the time, just a couple hours. Was familiar with his game in high school, but I didn't see at college basketball SEC star, NBA MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, NBA Finals MVP, Shai Alexander. I never saw that coming when he was in high school. And I didn't see that coming when he was at Kentucky. Even as good as he was, what we saw this year, I never thought we would see. But man, you talk about a guy that just got better and better and better and better with his game. That's just a great human being. My favorite player that I covered in 7 years was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, easily. My favorite player that I covered. And just really cool to see that, and for him to have so much ahead of him still, and for that franchise to get one after not being able to get one with the big three that they had, because I loved Oklahoma City when it was KD, Russ, and James Harden and Ibaka and all those guys, and they were easy to follow. I feel like that this youth wave that they've had recently too has been easy and fun to follow as well, but it's cool to see them have the payout. But Cason also making plays, just 2 years removed from being at Kentucky and finding his way through the league. It's really cool to see two different Kentucky guards doing their thing and having success there.
Yeah, just a hilariously incredible recruiting tool for Kentucky right now, especially recruiting 5-star guards. Bring in just hey, look at how many times the word Kentucky was thrown out there during this NBA playoff run, especially with as it relates to Shai and as it relates to Cason. Kentucky was just constantly in the news because of those two, and what they were able to accomplish, especially Shai. So just timing couldn't be any better for Kentucky, and Mark Pope is he's looking to land some big fish. So shout out Shai, shout out Cason. Definitely represented Kentucky well, and we're definitely very proud of them. Also set to represent Kentucky very well. NBA draft tomorrow night, where one for certain, probably two, and maybe even three Wildcats could and will get drafted. Kobe Brea moving up the draft charts, looking pretty firmly as an early second round pick now. But surprisingly, Amari, well, not a surprise to me or us because we're massive Amari fans, but finally the NBA scouts are starting to buy in as well, where he's kind of emerging as one of those sleepers right before the draft, as a guy who's going to probably go earlier than a lot of people expect. He's going to probably come off the board, and it really caught my attention. Sean, I'm going to get your thoughts on this. We had a draft call with Jay Billis, ESPN's Jay Billis, last week, and Zach Gagan asked him specifically about the Kentucky guys and what he should expect, when they're going to come off the board. And, very quickly, both names, Kobe Brea and Amari Williams, were brought up. And then he said, but also don't forget about Jackson Robinson. I think he has a pretty sneaky shot of getting drafted too. And we were like, oh, excuse me, Jackson Robinson, who has been out after undergoing wrist surgery and is just now getting back to workouts and getting in front of teams, meeting with teams, and those things. So that would be just the ultimate win on draft night if Jackson can slide in there at the end of the second round, knowing the wrist situation and what he had to overcome this season. Just what an unbelievable thing it would be for the Kentucky program, but also for three awesome dudes. Lamont's gonna get a summer league deal. Andrew Carr is gonna play summer league and work his way into a two-way, something like that. So the Kentucky boys are gonna be able to prove themselves summer league and beyond. But man, for those three guys, especially if they flirting with the draft boards, potentially getting drafted, it'd be a really really cool moment for this program.
It would be, and it's another one of those moments that if Mark Pope in year one can produce an NBA draft pick from the transfer portal, that's a big thing for what you're able to pitch and sell moving forward in recruitment, because this team has some NBA pop on it as well, where guys are going to hear their name called in the NBA draft. But if you can get that down now, and if you get it's just to me it's just one. If you're able to get two, possibly three guys to hear their name called, I think it's a massive thing for what this program can do on the recruiting trail and the transfer portal in the next cycle of what you're wanting to do next spring. So, but it also, I think it stands in kind of proof for this system and the way that this system can produce and put you in situations that make you a pro. Can you knock down threes? Can you play in space? And can you defend? If you can do any combination of those things, Jack, and you've got great size, you can play in the league if you've got a really good skill set. And I think that those guys fit. Kobe Brea is going to be able to shoot the ball at an elite level in the NBA. Amari Williams is a versatile piece that I think could be in a program in a franchise for 10 plus years based off of his body, his skill set, and his ability to rebound and do other things. Like, is he a role player off the bench for a team in the finals or playoffs 4 or 5 years from now? I could see it. So those guys have a combination of skill sets that gets them this opportunity. But I think that being put in that system at UK kind of showcased an NBA level system offensively of what they can do. And I think that if this happens, Jack, and it works out, I think that this is a big thing for Mark Pope's Kentucky brand.
Of that group, who is going to have the most successful NBA career? When you talk the guys who are likely to get drafted, and even if you want to include, is there a chance Lamont carves out a role? Is there a chance Andrew Carr carves out a role? Who of that group is going to have the best NBA career?
I really like Kobe Brea just because of the ability to shoot the ball and stretch the floor. Like, there are guys in the league that have a spot on rosters now that just literally are just knockdown shooters. And could that be what he becomes in the NBA? A guy that stretches the floor, can create his own. We got to see him create his own shot one-on-one and knock down deep threes in closing moments for Kentucky this year. Like, you put him with some downhill guys in this league, and he's just an off-the-ball guy that plays not a ton of minutes, but in a long NBA regular season, and then in the playoffs becomes a specialist type player. I could see him being the most successful guy out of this group. Amari, I can see – I don't think Amari – when I view Amari, I view him as one of those high-energy guys that plays minutes off the bench as a backup forward that finds a path to make a lot of money and has a very impactful career until he's probably 33, 34. And that's what I could see for Amari Williams. But Kobe, to me, just has the shot that we know the league plays in such great space now that I get it. The defensive end's not as impactful for him, but the trade out is he's a sniper and can knock down threes. Like, that's where I could see him being the most impactful piece.
Amari is just fascinating to me because I think this was the first time in his career that he kind of realized what he could be as a dominant, like, hey, you can do this against the best of the best in the SEC, the strongest league in the history of college basketball. You can be an all SEC talent. I know he didn't earn that accolade the way he should have. I thought he was snubbed, but Amari played himself into that conversation as an all SEC center by doing NBA things. Obviously, the shooting is not something that's going to translate to the NBA. We still, maybe it will. Maybe that's something that he learns and establishes and grows, within himself. We haven't seen that quite yet, other than like 2 Hail Mary prayers at the end of the shot clock a couple of times. But beyond that, no shooting whatsoever. But everything else he brings to the table as a playmaker, as a facilitator, as a hustle guy, as a physical presence, as a lob catcher, is a guy who can, runs the floor well. He just does a lot of things that if he can even become an okay shooter, like if he can even just solidify himself as a capable guy who isn't just a total liability in that regard, he has everything else to be a really, really good pro. So I'm praying that clicks for him at some point and he does become a capable shooter, and we do get to see that on the big stage, all the other tools that he has, because there is just so much there, and it would be kind of a shame to see all of that God-given talent not put on the big NBA stage the way it probably deserves. Because, it isn't just an Oscar type deal where he's undersized and he's an unbelievable, rebounding specialist and lob threat and finisher around the rim, but really doesn't give you much of anything elsewhere. He can be an unbelievable defender. He can be an unbelievable passer and facilitator, can bring the ball up, you can run the offense through him. He does so many things that I think he's going to make it. I think that there's a path to Amari Williams making it and being a very good pro at that. So I'm really looking forward. And I think Kobe's going to make a lot of shots in this league for a very long time. I think that just kind of speaks for itself. What about the next group? What is the path for a Lamont to make it? And what's the path for an Andrew Carr to make it? And Jackson as well.
It's tough as you get deeper, but like I still think that all you got to do is just perform well in front of the right person one time, right? And then you get an opportunity. Somebody just has to fall in love with you and what your role could be. Is Lamont's as one of those deep guards that just gets added on a deal where he spends some time in the G League and then gets called up for an opportunity when there's injuries or something at some point in a season, Jack, and he defends at a high clip and just plays with great energy. Like, that's probably the path for him. Carr's probably the same way. Like you got to go. Some guys are going to have to grind for that opportunity a little bit longer, but you just got to stay the course and just wait for your moment. And maybe you get it. Maybe it's a 10-day opportunity at some point in the season, and you just play well on a team and kind of show your worth and your value. And I think all these guys will get opportunities to do it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Well, that I think wraps up everything that I wanted. Is there anything else you wanted to get off your chest before we wrap this thing up? We went through like 97 topics. It was good. I liked everything we were able to cover. Is there anything else you wanted to hit on?
Not that I can think of. I think we've hit on everything. I mean, we know as soon as we stop, something will pop up. We'll have to wait a week to talk about
fails. It. Yeah.
But hey, we're grinding through the off season here. Next episode will be a July episode.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe that we're where we are. But appreciate you hopping on and knocking out. Appreciate Kentucky basketball for giving us all this content. Good grief. This is just amazing to be able to have hour-long shows and be able to fill it with a ton of stuff. So appreciate UK basketball and all the fun stuff going on. We'll see what happens with, Tay Kinney's visit, and we'll have some, more intel and things to talk about from summer workouts next week. And, maybe get a guest. We'll worked on one for this show that fell through, but we'll come up with something unique for next week's show. But until then, Sean, where can fans find your work?
At _ Coach S. Smith, I think.
Look at you.
I still don't know it.
Look at you, man. That's impressive.
There we go. _ Coach S. Smith.
You can find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Go subscribe to KSR Plus. Keep this conversation moving. And, all the fun stuff. We're getting into the summer goofy topics, so we're having a lot of fun there. And make sure you are subscribed. I think we're pretty close on the subscriber count for the KSR. Still on the cusp of Steven getting canned. We're at 49.8, so we're very, very close. But make sure we solidify, another couple weeks before Steven gets fired for something else. So appreciate all his work behind the scenes, behind the camera on this one. This is a lot of fun. For Jack Pilgrim, for Sean Smith, for Steven Peak, we will see you next time. Go Cats.